Okay, so we're doing our TED Talk on the science behind humor, and we are going to start our TED Talk by displaying a giant picture of Kim Jong-un in a Where's Waldo hat. And we were going to pretend that this is actually what our TED Talk is about, and the subtitle would state, a TED Talk dedicated to locating the whereabouts of the North Korean leader. And we know it's kind of controversial, but Ms. Basir said it was okay, but we just wanted to get your opinion on it too. And we were going to explain that hopefully people would laugh at this point, and we would explain that it's funny because it's a violation of your expectations. You don't expect to see two 17-year-old girls at a Christian school go on stage to give a talk about the whereabouts of the leader of a communist country. It's incongruent.
And then we go on to talk about the incongruity theory, which the incongruity theory was originated by James Beattie, and it states that humor is derived from two or more odd, inappropriate, inconsistent, or unsuitable parts or circumstances that are juxtaposed, which result with surprise or unexpectedness. So that's the formal definition, but what that basically means is that the incongruity theory states that things are funny because a joke or a scenario will be taking your brain down one pathway, but then all of a sudden the end will have a twist, and basically we find ourselves laughing at stories that take an unexpected direction.
And then I was going to tell the story about the time that I had my head out the sunroof and my mom went into the garage and I got a concussion when I hit the garage door. And then we were also going to include a Cyanide and Happiness cartoon.
Yeah, we have several different examples. We're going to get a clip from Modern Family, which we haven't cut yet, but it's probably going to be about 1 minute showing the incongruity theory like in action on TV. And then we're also going to have several pictures of the Chick-fil-A cow advertisements because those are very incongruent when you have a cow holding up a sign that's saying eat more chicken, and they're really funny and cute. So we're going to show how they use that in advertising. And then we also have an experiment that is a perfect example of how the incongruity theory works out.
Okay, so this experiment was conducted by Professor Sauls, as cited in Mr. Palmer's book. The theory of incongruity was tested by telling children the following different variations of the same joke. Doctor, come at once. Our baby swallowed a fountain pen. I'll be right over. What are you doing in the meantime? Using a pencil. The second joke stated, Doctor, come at once. Our baby swallowed a rubber band. I'll come at once. What are you using in the meantime? Using a pencil. And the third joke stated, Doctor, come at once. Our baby swallowed a fountain pen. I'll be right over. What are you doing in the meantime? We don't know what to do. Most of the children that this joke was told found that the first joke was the funniest because there was incongruity as well as a resolution, while in the other two jokes there was either incongruity or just a resolution.
And then we were going to go into the benign violation theory, which is a subset of incongruity. It's more modern. And basically, the benign violation theory states that for something to be funny, it has to have three different parts to it. The first one is the situation has to be a violation of some sort. The second is it has to be benign, which means it's not harmful. And then the third one is that it has to, these two previous requirements have to be occurring simultaneously. And the joke basically threatens one's belief about how the world should be. And in order to explain this, we're going to show the chart of the benign violation theory. Basically, what the chart represents is that for something to fall under the benign violation theory, it has to satisfy being both a violation and benign, and that's why only the center of the chart would be parts that are funny. And this explains why we laugh at a friend when they run into a pole or fall down the stairs but they're not hurt, and why we don't laugh at someone who gets in a terrible car accident, because that is definitely a violation that is not benign.
The superiority theory was originated in Greek theater, and many of the Greek philosophers supported it, such as Aristotle and Plato. And they found that humor in our feelings of superiority. However, Thomas Hobbes developed the modern definition of this theory, which basically states that as a society we find humor in a sense that we are above others. And this is why in the 1920s we based performances off of blackface, which was to poke fun at African Americans, but obviously now we don't find that funny because of the cultural difference. This is also why we laugh at toddlers that fall on their face, because we're obviously more intelligent and more experienced than toddlers, thus we find ourselves superior over them. Or if we were going to show pictures of a really bad picture, running pictures of us, and hopefully people would laugh at that because they would feel superior over us. And there are other examples where this theory is implicated in everyday situations, such as fat jokes. Although we probably shouldn't be laughing, we do find ourselves laughing, and we were going to show a picture here of a fat Disney tourist because since we live in Orlando, we're never going to be that tourist, so thus we find ourselves superior over them. And then at this point, we were also going to show a clip from The Office of all the employees roasting Michael, and we were also going to talk about how sports jokes, how we use those because we feel superior over the rival team. And then we were going to say the FSU joke.
Because Jamie Swinston has been getting in a lot of trouble, so a lot of UF fans make fun of that, especially because he stole crab legs, so we were going to show this picture of him where his head is photoshopped onto the deadliest catch because a lot of UF fans find that funny because they feel superior to FSU, and FSU fans don't find it quite as funny as UF fans do.
However, there are many faults in this theory because we don't laugh at car accidents on the side of the road, and we don't laugh at homeless people and poverty on the side of the street.
And then the next theory that we're going to talk about is the relief theory, and it describes that laughter, and it was developed by Herbert Spencer and Sigmund Freud, and it states that laughter is derived from suppressed subconscious thoughts and sexual tensions. So this describes nervous laughter when you're discussing something that may be a sensitive issue or something in the classroom. We can't really show too many jokes about this because they wouldn't be appropriate for school. But one good example that we're going to show is the Milgram shock test, which was basically a psychological test conducted at Yale. It was highly unethical. And basically there was a teacher and a learner, and the teacher didn't know that the learner was part of the experiment, and it tested the obediency to authority because the teacher was required to shock the learner every time they got the answer wrong, but they didn't know that they were actually not receiving the shock. So every time the shock would go up and the teacher would, kind of get nervous and start laughing because the higher the shock, the more pain that person was in, even though they didn't know that. So we're going to show the video here about how the teacher would have like a nervous laughter during this time, and that demonstrates the relief theory perfectly. It's the cultural part that we're going to go into next, how there are cultural differences in humor. So not only are there various theories about what makes things funny, but there are cultural differences too. For example, the physically and mentally challenged, ethnic and racial groups and women often find that superiority structure of humor is disagreeable, whereas men find it funny. And this would fall under the category of Holocaust jokes.
Because you're not going to tell like a Holocaust joke to a group of Hasidic Jews, and you're not going to tell a border control joke to a group of Mexicans. Like, they wouldn't find it funny.
Yeah, and another perfect example that we're going to show in this part is the Ebola jokes that have been going on. So we're going to show some tweets, because on Twitter a lot of people have been making some comments about Ebola, like joking about it, because we don't have it here, and we do have it, like 2 cases here in America, but it's not that bad, and some people think it's kind of funny, but over in Africa, where there's a 50% death rate, they're not laughing about our Ebola jokes. And another example of this would be how Americans, amongst the other people in the world, are perceived as kind of fat, and they make fat American jokes, like, oh, look at that American eating a hamburger, and people just think that's funny. So that's going to be one of our examples for that. But overall, humor across cultures is different, because what may be funny to one person is quite offensive and hurtful to another.
And humor causes laughter, and there are a lot of health benefits to laughter, but being more humorous in like everyday life, like it helps you in interviews. It can really help you in any sort of experience.
So yeah, our main idea at the end is going to be talking about how humor has so many benefits, because laughter helps produce better pain tolerance, less stress, lower blood pressure, and longevity. Also, it's also been proven that humor really helps people learn better, and we're just going to take this idea at the very end and make that our big
and elaborate it a little bit.
And elaborate it some more.